There's a topic within the Souls-like community that is incredibly important, but somehow we don't openly talk about it, and that is the community itself. While the Souls-like community is the home of a ton of incredible people who put in so much effort into things from mods to artwork to YouTube videos to lore analysis to making their own books on Dark Souls and other games of its ilk, there is an equally dark side to this community, filled with people who are obsessed with putting down other players, with convincing others that the games were not made for them. Gatekeepers who frequently contradict themselves and apply the type of rhetoric that you would expect from the cringiest era of fanboy console wars. People who would try and convince you that when From Software made a game where the entire point of it was to make it more accessible and have it reach a broader audience, and then that game did exactly that. No, sir. According to them, this game was not made for you. In the algorithmic echo chamber that we live in today, you might have never encountered one of these get-gooders, but I also think that it's one of the negative fan bases, if you want to call it that way, that purposefully goes out of their way to go into other people's comment sections, TikTok videos, Twitter threads, Reddit threads, whatever, just to push their dumb rhetoric onto others. And I want to make it very clear that I am talking about a minority, an excessively vocal minority, but this is not the majority of the fan base. I think that most people who engage in fan bases or engage with the Souls games outside of just playing them are great people who just want to have a good time and share their love for something. But this minority is disproportionately vocal to the point that I think it's harmful to the overall community. I am very confident that most of the people watching this video right now have very vivid examples of these characters, which is proof enough that they are an issue. And sure, I recently had to be subjected to them yet again with my 3 Elden Ring videos that I put out for the DLC. I received over 1,000 comments to the tune of, "You suck and you're bad at games and your opinion doesn't matter." These are the people who will actually use the same defense that we tried to cancel Emil Pagliarulo from Bethesda over. You know, the lead on that game that told critics that they couldn't criticize the game because they had never made a game because we didn't know how the sausage was made? Well, the get-gooders are the ones now in my comments telling me that I can't criticize the game because I didn't make it. What? But that's beyond the point. This isn't a clapback video. There might be a little bit of it here and there, because I need a little bit of catharsis at some point, right? I am human. But that's not the focus. The interesting part about this is, how did this ever happen? How did this come to be? What is the history here for these people to feel justified in what they say? Because they truly believe that some of the messages that they consistently spit out year after year, since pretty much Demon Souls, is right. They believe that these games are not made for the majority of people. It's some special creation only for the hardest of hardcore. But there are plenty of games that have blown up and reached brand new audiences. And while there are always in those communities other people who feel similarly, that whoever is new doesn't deserve to enjoy the talents of something that was created for them, I feel like it's never to the same extent as the get-gooders. So why? Well, and please, in case it's not obvious, do not take this as a defense of their attitudes, their messages, or the way that they try and gatekeep video games, which is something that, by the way, I stand against completely. Life is pretty tough. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I don't think so. And I think that most people deserve to have fun and enjoy their lives. So the whole "this isn't for you" thing isn't my jam. My jam is much more, well, try it. Maybe it is for you. I digress. Where did this come from? There's no shortage of articles, retrospectives, and overall media talking about how Dark Souls is so successful with pure-blooded hardcore gamers because of the challenge that it presents. But that begs the question, is it really all that challenging? Dark Souls, like most games, is designed to be beaten. That doesn't mean that it's intuitive to beat, that doesn't mean that it's easy, but not necessarily because there is an arbitrary challenge placed in front of the player. A lot of the difficulty present in Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1 is in adapting to a new playstyle and mechanics that we are not familiar with. At the dawn of something new, there is always an adaptation period. You can tell, especially because now I think Dark Souls could be considered a fairly easy game. A lot of its worst deaths are more things that are meant to kill you, kind of like a surprise. But within its mechanics and its mechanical complexity, as well as within the secrets and how to actually build a character or take advantage of different things, it's not that difficult anymore because we have all of the information available. This continues throughout the entire series. If you're a Souls veteran, you probably found each entry easier than the one before, at least in its majority. This is because every game, and specifically every genre, has their own vocabulary. The things that players need to learn in order to converse with the game, to actually work through it, play it, and be successful at it. And because there are so many shared words within the Souls-like space, once you learn them in one game, they kind of translate very effectively to others depending on how faithfully they stick to that beginning language. But the Souls series, specifically drinking from a very long tradition in From Software's games in general, understands that and actually uses it to its advantage. Throughout the history of From Software's games, understanding the language that they want to speak with you is an integral part of the experience, just as much as it is community. This is why things like leaving messages or summoning was such an important part of the original Dark Souls. It's integral to the experience that you were meant to find things that seemed impossible to overcome, but with the help of community, with the help of forums, with the help of people gathering together and sharing information and helping each other, you could overcome all of these secrets that in their majority presented the difficulty in that vocabulary, not in mechanics. Up to here, I am about 100% confident in everything I'm saying, but let me take it a step down to 90%. In my opinion, the challenge within the Souls series is understanding that each death is another step in the right direction as long as you learn from it. If it motivates you to find a creative solution to a problem, if it motivates you to learn a boss's attack pattern, if it motivates you to look for something to give you an advantage and then communicate it to other players, that is your progress, even if you died. It's not meant to be insurmountable or a badge of pride that people that accomplish it are meant to wear. Ever since the start, there's been items that break the game. There's been secrets that allow you to get a leg up if you know what you're doing. Let's be honest, how many of you, including me, cut down the drake's tail to get the sword? Come on. That essence of community and moving forward to beat those challenges is integral to everything within the Souls series. But the part of this equation that Western marketing decided to focus on was not on the learning from death, but on death. Prepare to die. A sentence that you can only pull off if you're a second-rate DC villain or Bandai Namco's marketing team. From my personal experience of being alive and on the internet for a very long time, a lot of the comments that people have around Dark Souls and why it's so cool and why other people aren't allowed to play it is because of its extreme difficulty that requires true dedication in order to beat. Most people just die. It takes true skill within this legacy that marketing told you was difficult to beat it and be good at the video games. Ever since the start of the series, and since before it, because there have been arguments about this with From Software games and with other games since the dawn of time, go look at stuff from Armored Core, where people will tell others, you didn't actually beat the game because you used these weapons that are obviously broken. Well, that same division has happened within the Souls series. There's those of us who cut down the drake's tail because we read it on a forum and then we celebrated that we used that weapon to progress through the game and stumbled onto a secret and discussed the lore or shared in how excited we were at new things within the game. And then there are the god gamers, you know, The ones who beat the game with a broken straight sword on day one. I'm mentioning this because I think it's a myth that the Get Good Bros only started existing as the series grew in popularity, when that's not true. Right from the start, there were people who never got the Drake sword. There were people who never took any shortcut or any advantage or went out of their way to get good gear or to power level. People who just took the challenge head on and managed to beat it, whether because they wanted that challenge for themselves and they found that to be fun, or whether because they just didn't know that those other things existed, and once they didn't use them, they had to brag about it. The part that's very confusing right from the start is why there were people who thought that using the things that are in the game was not a real gamer move. This is the first big mystery to me. You would assume that the correct way to beat the game is however the developers gave you the tools to beat it. But there's some people that have always believed that you're supposed to use only a certain set of tools that the developers give you, because that makes you better at the game by engaging with less of its intended mechanics. I'm gonna beat Dark Souls 1 without using a shield. I'm gonna beat Dark Souls 1 without using any armor. I'm gonna beat Dark Souls 1 without this, and this. And some people found so much fun and so much enjoyment in the challenge, in the dare of prepare to die, that they believed that the philosophy of these games moving forward should be catered towards that attitude, even when it's gone in the completely opposite one. This is the beginning of the elitist mentality that there are certain things that are valid and other things that are not. Anything that the community considers to be overpowered, or in other words, that is too strong comparatively to the challenge that the developers put in, even though they also put in that overpowered stuff, doesn't count. And so we have the term cheese. Now, brief history lesson, I don't know if this is the same for everybody, but when I was growing up, the term cheese referred more to things like gaming the AI. Like the incredibly cheap bosses at the end of the arcade modes in fighting games, you could cheese them. Go play Tekken 1. Tell me later how you beat Heihachi. It's finding a little part of the arena where if you stand in, their AI breaks, or finding something that allows you to do consistent damage to them without them reacting, or allows them to go into a loop that's easily exploitable. That definition of it is long gone, and it's a much broader definition today, which sometimes still applies or shows some shades of that original one. And so with the years, it has gone from things that more or less made sense, that seemed unintended and that would break the game, into anything that the community subjectively considers to be too strong. With things like Elden Ring, I've seen people call anything that is meta to be cheese. That includes using things like bleed builds, or any Ash of War that is too strong, according to people. Things that consistently poise break or stagger enemies, things that give you hyper armor while doing so. Despite the fact that there are about 50 different things that are meta and very strong, all of them are now considered cheese, despite just being one of the many things in the game that is strong. I believe that this evolution from the start of the Soul series, where there were things that seemed unintended that were way too strong, into a constant evolution of the genre into more builds and more weapons and more moves, has led to people that still have this sense of pride of when these games were not as big and not as deep and didn't have this many options, saying, well, if you do anything that isn't just stand there and attack something with the most basic weapon, you're cheesing it. That is, unless you're one of those person's favorite YouTubers, because when their favorite YouTubers do a Rune Level 1 challenge run and use every single meta thing in the book, exploiting the weakness of every boss to beat them in 2 or 3 hits, those are geniuses and god gamers. However, if you choose to use the things in the game, you suck, which leads to the incredibly toxic loop that the Get Good Bros love. If you ever express that something in the game is difficult for you, get good. If you ever express that you think something isn't balanced or isn't well done or is overly difficult or punishing or, God forbid, unfun, you should get good. if you use any of the things that they deem to be cheese, you should get good instead of using these things that you saw their favorite YouTubers use. At the end of the day, anything from their moralist standpoint that is completely focused on gatekeeping the games and making sure that they cater to what they would like the games to be is cheese, and you should get good. Elden Ring in this way is like the worst nightmare for them because of how it escalates and how it tries to make everything as accessible. Many things have been said about the dynamic difficulty of Elden Ring, whether you want to use summons or different weapons, ashes of war, or certain builds at certain points in the game just being pretty much objectively better. And like I said at the top of the video, that was all done with the intention of having the game reach a broader audience. The shift to open world and giving flexibility and that dynamic difficulty to people was so that less people would run into the game, get beaten into the ground, and say, I quit. It was so that more people would go into the loop of each death being a learning experience that pushes you into finding different ways to make it through the game, an experience that is often shared with community. And it definitely paid off because Elden Ring is the biggest From Software game, without doubt. And so the Get Good bros have to come out and defend it even more, because now the game is actively catering against them. The part that has always left me confused about the elitism within the Souls community is that the things that they pride themselves on still exist. You can still do as many challenge runs as you want. You can still beat the game with as many crazy conditions as you want to put on yourself. And if you feel proud and within your community, that is something to be proud of, it's still there. Nobody's taken it away. But it seems to be, and this is a very human thing, that because what they did as a challenge can be done in a different way, much easier, by regular Joe Schmo coming home from work at 8 p.m. and just having 2 hours per week to play Elden Ring, but he also beat Millennia, means that their accomplishment is lesser. And so I believe that the root cause of all of this is simply that other people don't view the games the same way that they do, and that makes them angry. There is a logical basis to this. They didn't randomly spring up one day with this idea of it. The games themselves are these cryptic challenges, but they have always been based around creative problem solving with communities. It's the fact that they do accommodate for all of these other challenges that leads to them feeling like their achievements are less, because there are people out there who just don't care about them. You can tell with this because I'm going out on a limb here, but I think that a lot of the people who fall into this elitist camp are extremely defensive. They will pop out of the woodwork as soon as they hear anything, even if it's the smallest detail, that could go against what they perceive to be their truth. I can make a comment in a video about how Elden Ring is designed for the broadest player base possible while still being a relatively hard video game, and how some of the decisions in the DLC don't really fit with that. I'm not even saying that it's good or bad, I'm stating it as a fact. It's a DLC. It could have been designed exclusively for the hardcore this time. But they will jump out and go into the comments and say that what I said doesn't make sense because they loved the experience for themselves, and then they will post a dissertation on why they loved it, along with the spreadsheet that they kept of how many times they died to each boss, which is totally what normal, casual gamers do. Of the 25 million people who bought Elden Ring, I'm sure that at least 20 million of them keep spreadsheets. But that's what I'm getting at. They will take anything that happens towards the games to heart. They think that it's targeting them because they feel that the version of these games that they love is under threat. And that's very human. I can empathize with that 100%, even if I completely disapprove of the way that they go about making all of us informed of it. This happens all the time. This happens with all sorts of fan bases, fearing that something is going to lose its identity. We can talk about Final Fantasy a different day. But I do believe that at the core of this entire issue is that we should all understand that what we get from a game can be very individual and very personal and does not need to apply to anyone else on the entire planet. When it comes to things like my critical analysis of games, many times it's from an objective perspective, other times it's from a subjective perspective, and many times it's trying to decipher, to understand within the language of games, within developers, within the history of something. Which, by the way, shameless plug, remember to subscribe for my From Software retrospective. It comes from trying to understand what is communicated to us in the design of the game. Because it's very different what we make of something than what the creators intended for it to be. I think that it's a gift that From Software made games following the tradition that they more or less have always had, and people discovered them and loved them and found their own way of enjoying them. But that doesn't mean that's the only way they're meant to be enjoyed. It doesn't mean that if they want a broader audience, that they don't care about you. It doesn't mean that everybody else has to play the game the way that you do. It's okay for other people to find enjoyment. And I feel like the toxic behavior of a lot of the group of elitist get-gooders is at its best stopping people from enjoying things like challenge runs and getting into the games even more, and at worst, stopping people from getting into the games at all. And yes, a game made for everyone is a game for no one, but that doesn't mean it has to be made for you. There's a spectrum there that allows for growth and for accessibility. One of my favorite YouTube creators of all time is a man by the name of Noah Caldwell-Gervais. Noah has been doing essays on video games for longer than I've been working. I got a high school degree, a college degree, worked in many different places, and come back to start my own YouTube channel. And in that entire period of time, Noah Gervais has been doing video essays about video games, way before it was cool. One of the reasons I even started my own YouTube channel is because I love in-depth discussion and conversations about video games. I like people who take it one step further and really respect them as art and want to understand everything about them. That even though YouTube video game essayist is now a whole thing, for me there just wasn't enough of it. So I just wanted to make the same things that I love watching. Noah continues to make excellent videos, and they're a highlight for me whenever they come out. 2 years ago, Noah put out an almost 10-hour duo of videos, covering all of the Souls-likes since Dark Souls. He frequently, almost to a degree that can seem annoying, complains about the amount of comments and hate that he's received over the years, specifically from the Souls community. Noah, by his own admission, is not very good at video games. But he loves them, he enjoys them, and he thinks about them from a very unique perspective that he manages to put into words and edit into a video that is always enjoyable to watch, and from which you always leave having learned something. So it was surprising to me that a voice that I've heard for so long in such a tone shift completely into this vengeful, angry voice towards the Souls community, for belittling him constantly, for telling him that he's not allowed to criticize the games, that he's not allowed to give his opinion on them because he sucks too much. And whatever way that he chooses to beat the game because of his level of skill, it will never be the intended way. It'll be cheese. It'll be lesser. And therefore, his opinion should be disregarded. His voice as a critic doesn't count. Let me tell you, friends, the reason that we keep laughing at the dude who couldn't get past the Cuphead tutorial is because they said that the game was broken, that the game was difficult. If he had come out and said, "I'm stupid," we would have respected them more. Noah knows who he is, and he went into that 10-hour retrospective knowing that. It's a great watch. Don't take it from me, take it from Vadi Video. But what Noah learned at the end of the day is that these games were designed to be beaten, that these games are designed to accommodate people, to spread joy. They are made to be enjoyed, even when you fail. So remember that the part of the game where you're progressing the most is every time that it tells you you die. I understand why the get good bros are the way they are. It's a natural human reaction to feel threatened by something. It's natural to want to be right. But the truth of the matter is, we're all right. I hope that through understanding and viewing things through different perspectives, the Souls-like community, the community that is so important and by the design of the games and by the intention of the creators, is so integral to the experience of these games, can be just a little bit better and more understanding of each other. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, do me a favor, leave a comment below and include "I love cheese" somewhere in the comment and I'll heart every single one of them. An extra special thanks to those who choose to support me on Patreon up on the $1 wall. It's called that way because there's only one tier, $1. If you like the video, hit the like button and you can check out the channel, some other videos, maybe even subscribe. I've been Mugthief, and as always, I'll see you again very soon.